Having a storage facility is really understand the mainframe set location. I think it's extremely powerful. I'll just show you exactly what can happen. Connected to my scripts, just wanted to show you what your imagination can do and where it goes, right? You have to have characteristics. You have to have a story frame. You have to have a beginning, middle, and unfortunately, you have to have an end. But the end line center location is not the end. It's either it's continued or you just basically you're happy with what you have in that position. Our imagination runs wild. So to understand how it runs wild is to understand its position and where it stands in all calculation. I think it's important that we come to higher volumes and how to use it. As of today, in position locations, we're going to go through 75 settings into your heart directional time sequence. This puts a platitude line interference in set locations. The ventricle line setting line in position comes into the center line. Now that's time sequence location of high. Recognition high calculations of 12, 24, 48, 72, and 144. Now that position of direct location sets up its high setting. Now you got a solar line interference that's coming into a generation stream. That recognition of time sequence is going to go to higher levels of plateau. The heart calculation system is XYZ. Calculation XRP. No, it's not the XRP. It's the location what you think it is, the crypto. It's connected to X-ray settings. It's a relay program. The relay line center line position application high center line calculation system is scanning. Scanning the line center locations into palpitation streams. Correction of time sequence opens all track line setting or interference. Now the rotation spin cycle puts everything in position locations of 24,000 lines. Okay, when it comes into its track location to its antennas and 48,000 windows of set locations and satellite settings. The open window and the frequency set location line setting, the heart recognizes time. The communications comes into 7/5. Now that sets lines of communication when it comes into higher measure. The scales in the communication system is platted to division location. You have the 12 DNA track. So as of line communication, as of today's setting location, your heart is going to be a line communication of 75 gigabytes. That heart lines its communication into a rainbow graph line stream. So that sets a line communications to X, Y, Z. Z line setting, line interference line position locations, right? Connecting all line and position location and chromosome line set rotations, receivers and set locations of high setting into carrier set locations. Direction timelines, neural synopsis, line calculation interference, neurons. Now there's a 40,000 line stream. Setting calculation of particle line calculation setting. Direction of time sequence. It opens all plateaus, line position, your heart direction of time. The palpitation line calculation setting is now in a set locations. Now we set up the barometers and set locations of the binary sets. This is in a reversal cycles line setting line condition system. Modification is simulation to all levels at singularity calculations. So the heart is going to recognize its laser setting, directional location at 12 planet location centers in set line communication system. This is going to merge in set line calculation setting. There's some time sequence locations. So let's start off in set location setting. Heart recognition of time in set line calculation setting and calculation system. And there's the heart setting, directional time sequence. Platitude visual location at 3 ventricle valve line center location high setting recognition timelines and in position of all set locations in the downshift position. So we got a platitude line interference of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 set locations. All right, all set position. Now each one is an X line connections. X, Y, okay, in set position, top line signal. Comes into a Y line into a Z line set locations. So that's Y, X location of Z. Where's some time sequence, all right? This is all calculations. Now the set communication comes into ozone line rotation, setting calculation line interference. H2O and calculation line interference, line correction locations, comes into all set location and down core line setting into 12, 24, 48, 72, northwest, south, and east. Northwest, south, and east in set location setting. Direction of time sequence line calculation system. Now this is zero line. Set locations of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Setting calculation line interference. Direction line calculation setting. So coming in X line and position location of T set and position locations. Then you go into XRP, XR line setting. equaline conditions of one system and track locations into two set line setting interference. Direction of time sequence. So what I'm doing is I'm platitudinal line communication. This is how you set up beacon light heart direction of time sequence. Now the platitudinal locations gets in line calculation. This splits its anomaly. Center calculation, center position. Right? See the split line? All right, so this is a systematic line calculation of the system. Allocate line rotations into three set measures in set location setting. Direction time sequence puts it into a calculation stream. Now, it's in position location of plasma channel, the operation surface and set locations. Now we come into all calculations into X line, into T line, into ozone line setting. Direction line calculation system, direct line setting. So we get ground line, ground line, ground line, ground line, ground line, ground line, and 7 in position. 7 grounds of heart direction of time sequence. Now we take the line calculation line interference, direction of time sequence. Setting communication line interference. So we fill in the line position locations into 7, line calculation 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 set locations. Okay, each chromosome is set location, high setting, location, high setting. Direction of time sequence. Now we take the perimeters in the parameter line calculation streamline. Electrical line and infusion line calculation system. 3 infusion line tracks, 1, 2, and 3 set locations. 3 graph line setting. Direction line calculation interference. Okay, this is where we can heart calculation line interference and ventricle valve communications, the integrate location setting to the current location setting position. Line calculation system, recognize line calculation alpha, communicate delta, delta line communication beta, beta position omega, omega calculations into zeta, zeta into sigma, sigma line interference of sigma. Set line communication into all levels of ground line setting, 0 operation surface location line setting position. Travel calculation line interference. Direction of time sequence, location of flux capacitor. Lights and communications through the streamline, direction of time sequence. All right, so we go through the coloration, all calculation line settings, direction of time sequence. Now all the coloration line comes into purple. This purple comes out, flashes line, position location, high center line, positional locations like a sprinkler, setting communication line streams, and set location high system, and direction of time center. Direction of high center line interference, covering its communication setting and rotation surface, firing and wiring and communication line, rotation, and set location setting, and position of track line. Done. It's all set. All right. Now, really understand how to use the connections to the heart setting, direction of time sequence. So we set locations. Okay, we go through the block line position. There's some locations and levels. Now, line communication line interference. There's the moon set location. Set the moon setting and rotation. Let's go a little bit high set locations. There's the moon, right? Here's the sun, right? The sun's always in operation. Doesn't have to be activated, not yet, but it knows where it is in set location. Projector line setting, stream location, right? Now, it's that line calculation system. This is an alpha line rotation, setting calculations, voice line box, line rotation system, and heart palpitation streams. Direction line calculation of 0, line position of X, line position of Y, Z line center is 7, 7 over 5, 5 line center position location of 12, 12 lines of box, line position location into line calculation setting, 3 weather line rotations, 4 generation line streams. Let's see, generation line interference, ozone communication setting, direction of time sequence, line calculation interference, 0, 0, and position location operation of 2, square root line calculation system triangulation, and box line out into out system locations. Done by equation. All right. So the sun lines in communication, voice box, direction of 0 line, X line, 7 line, 5 line, equal line communication, 7 over 5, 5 over 12, direction line condition, 3 weather patterns, circle line communication to sun line, rotation interference, ozone layers, levels and calculation line interference, high set location operation, communication line interference, triangle line communication of box line, and position location track line. Done by equation, right? So voice box is set at location, bracket line communication setting. High set calculation is 5, 5 equals location of 7, 7 line equals 5, 5 line center interference location of 12, 12 line center of DNA, track interference, line position locations, palpitation, signal line calculation setting, 75 line settings and rotation. All right, so we take the 75 lines and rotations and we go through scribbage, set lines of calculation line interference of code weaving, set location settings, direction of time sequence. Now the time sequence opens all position of patterns, high set locations, recognition of time center. Now we go into space line into time sequence. Space line opens all the connection of flux fast communication line interference, position location, teleportation, tele waving line interference. Telecommunication line setting in position of 5, line position location of 7, line position of levels. Coming into set line condition system in position of 3, 3 lines of area code, line rotation interference. Setting calculation system, 75 line settings. Direction of time sequence location 7, equal location of 5. That's a 2-line center in percentage over line calculation system, 0 line position of 0, 0, 0. Dot communication, bracket line calculations, and 3 measured calculation streams. Done my equation. All right. Coming into heartline setting. Now, heartline setting, direction of time sequence is really understand how to set up platforms. Now, the direction of time sequence comes into line calculation system, flux capacitor, space line, time sequence. All right. So we come into all communication to align position. Okay. So flywheels and line communication, travel. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. See? Settles it up. Now, that's on the left line setting, line interference locations. You put a north line, you put an east line, you put a west line, you put a south line, longitude, latitude, line position locations. Longitude, line calculation, latitude, line center locations. Split it in center location line, center left, and position location right. It's set locations. Center geared line interference, line position location, the line center interference, position location, track line calculation setting. 12 line setting, 24, 48, line center line position of 72 to 144. 144, equal line conditions of 244, waiting on standby, position of 344, signal communication setting, and rotation surface. Ground line setting, splits position in 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 line connections at graph line stream, set line position locations. 3 in line setting, 2 in line rotation, 4 in position locations, 1 in line setting, 2 in activation, 4 in line position location, 4 in activation line setting. Calculation line and rotation, 7 in position location, 5 in line calculation, 12 in line interference. In 75 line setting, recognition of time sequence location of pi position location levels, 75 beacon light line position coloration path, line calculation line interference, and track location setting. Direction line and location position locations. 3 generations, 3 activations, and 3 position locations, triangulation position location high setting. Done by equation. It's all set up. All right, so the graph lines and heart direction of time sequence is now a ventricle line valve. So we get an X line position location line consists of flux capacitor location equal line consists of W. W communication line centers, line interference, line communications high setting. Direction of time sequence comes into Fibonacci swirl, line communication line and rotations, another Fibonacci, and another Fibonacci, and another Fibonacci. 3 set locations, 3 set locations, 3 set locations. 1, 2, 3, and triangulation line setting. Direction of time sequence, position location, back force, line setting, rotation surface. Operation surface and location setting, indirect location setting, interference line calculation. Set line calculations in a travel position location opposite cycle line calculation and interference. Open up all lines of track lines of sun and moon line and 2 panels line rotation, center communication line interference. X line channel, X, Y line setting, X line position, X line rotation, setting graph line streams 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 division location line connections, a DNA track line communications, X line Z line calculation system, XD line connections, XRP. Direction of time sequence location, heart direction of time sequence. Second line position. 3 line settings, rotation line position, heart calculations, 75 lines, beacon lights, and rotation surface. Done by equation. All right, setting calculation. It's really powerful. We're coming into location heart settings. All right, let's see here. How's everybody doing through these locations here? Tina, Heather, Geneva, how's it going? Chris, let's see. Calculations, all levels, Hemdall. Laura, it's great to see everybody. Happy smiles. It's amazing what we're coming into. So locations, Hemdall, Johnny, Gypsy. Yeah. Getting communication is really understanding your track lines when it comes in your heart recognition time sequence, guys. You have to understand the palpitation streamlines. It's going to skip rotation centers and off interference, the set communication line interference. It takes 1 second, which is 1 minute line rotation interference of 60,000 line settings of stream location and synchronous locations in line calculation system. All right. So it's going to go through 20 billion cycles in set line calculation. Direction of time sequence opens all positional patterns. Now, the pixel active stream is in line calculations. The direction of time sequence is a heart signature pattern. That heart signature pattern opens all communications to all level settings. Voice recognition line condition of 12. So we set line condition of 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Setting voice line, right? Direction of time sequence, flux capacitor line calculation system, diamond core line setting, in position location of pyramid set line condition, and 4 waving cycle set locations. Now, the direction of one line goes into the center position, operates its circle, operates its center, operates its calculations 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a voice pattern direction of time sequence. Sets calculation in position line track lines into your position line calculations to your pyramid of your heart setting, done by equation. All right. So in that signal line communication system, the voice box is going to set up line communications. The completing cycle and rotation surface is an operation ground line. This is an ozone layer. Ozone line and center line interference, equal line conditions X, Y, Z, and cell locations, chromosome line positions. Coming in calculations, the alphabetical line calculation system, keyboard line rotation, into computer adaptation surface, and high calculation streamline into Stargate line communication in its rotation surface, done by equation. All right. Setting direct signals locations. Now you got 12 line settings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. All right, 12 line settings. 3 ventricle valves. Okay, the V lines comes into velocity. VAS. Remember VAS? Triangulation of 3 sets and set locations, 3 centers. So we took the 3 line setting, 3 line interference into Z line position of X, line 1 line position of box. Box position of 0, operation 2, it's 12 line setting rotations, 12 line setting, 12 line rotations, 2 center operation to 2 atom line set locations, operation setting, operation surface and set location to 2 line position location of angles, 6 in-line calculations and moon set line rotation surface, travels its communication setting, opens up all calculations sun to the moon, operation to its position of track line calculation, done by equation. All right, so inline communication neutralize, directions of time sequence. Getting direct signals to the heart set locations, guys, you have to really understand how to modify your set location settings. It's all levels of set locations, all right? So there's a lot of travel when you go more lines of communication to your flywheels, set lines of pi, and set lines in 3 set locations. All right, so you got 1, 2, 3 set line connections, right? Heart direction of time sequence opens all position locations, all measures. Scales lines into flux capacitor line, electrical line communication, team set rotation. Now, in that line calculations are going to travel 3 set line calculations because it's got to recognize its atmosphere line stream. So once the heart line sets line communication, it goes into 12 lines, 12 equals location of solar system, setting calculations into line calculations. 1 diameter and 1 line calculations Merkaba shift lines of 1 signal in set line conditions of 60,000 line streams in set locations. That's 3 again and 3 measures, 3 calculations and 3 streams, 1 panel line calculation streamline set location, done by equation. Okay, so it's extremely complicated, right? This is probably very, very hard for everybody to understand these things. So it's all about integrate its locations. The intermittent line setting line condition system centers its line calculations. You have to really understand the space line calculations. Putting the heart in a coloration path of 12 line signals. Now, in rotation surface, we change direct location signals. So it's very powerful when we come to this location. All right, so go 1, this location is 1, change position. All right, and when you change position, it's very important you understand what you are doing through set lines of communication. All right, tracking centers and set lines. Okay, now, what I'm doing right now is to set up energy graph lines, radiation cycles, high center location operations surface, and set location settings. Okay, now, one set line conditions of 1 docile. That 1 docile line interference is a graph line strain, setting position of panels in position location in 2 settings. Now, the 2 line center line interference, we change direct location signals. The sending direct location system puts a position location on levels of panel line calculations. So we come in a paradox, so a paradigm in position of pulsar, calculations to all setting. Now, this is a perception location system, PP. Okay, so we graph the line set line interference, perception locations in parameters, and parameter line conditions comes in a 4 waving setting. Direction of time sequence location of pyramid set location. Direction of time sequence 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 18, 19, 20. 20 line setting, 20 billion line rotation surface and set locations, done by equation. All right. So channeling in set lines of communication is really understand how to use the energy graph line connections at levels. This programs its set locations. All right. Now it's extremely complicated. So as we take the x lines into y setting, in line equal line condition of 0, 0. This is where we come in percentage, equal line conditions of pi in set locations. Okay. Now, in that line communication, we take the 3 set, right? 3, 0 settings. Okay, so setting line communication of 3 in the center sets communication of travel lines, right? So 3 opens lines up into a Stargate set location. Now you got to set up the heart line and rotation surface. That's the recognized calculation setting. Direction high calculations comes in higher position, a point system. High calculations comes into travel. So we take the 3 lines and another dimensional line rotation surface into forward calculations. This puts another realm of communication of travel calculation setting in direct signal. Down by equation, right? Now the capsules and the communication heart line center line interference is 1 in measure, in 1 position, 1 scale, calculations to 1 frame, in position locations into 1, 1, 1, 1. Portal communications, 4 line channels of operation line connection settings. Now the directions of time, the center communication of space, and space of lines of communication rotation is all allocated position locations into 4 seasons, guys. It's putting 4 season line calculations, equal line conditions of 75 beacon lights in line communications is now in a solar system in set line calculation setting and direction location of time. 60,000 hours in set locations. Okay. Setting direct signal. Down by equation. All right. So your heart's a capsule. So really understand where you come to a shuttle line. Now, a shuttle line is to understand how to use the allocate line condition system to its ozone. You have communication of correlation of time sequence has a calculation setting to the 0 line, rotation surface, allocate line calculations, atmosphere change, and its position location with magnetic field. Right, so it's dimensional steps in line communication system. Rotation surface to line communication line graphs. So it's all digital play. All right. Now, digital play lines its audio line interference. Now, the directional time sequence comes into audio line calculation system of voice box location settings and track location system. All right. Now, in line calculation system, this comes into all levels. You have Yadam rotation, set to the atmosphere line setting, to position locations, to all levels, setting communication lines in position location remote, and calculations in position. Now, the remote line center comes back in line interference and triangulation location of 0, calculation to the line center of 0, 0, 0, and 3 set locations into a triangulation line interference into Merkabah position location attraction. Down by equation. So I'm setting up voice lines because as of tomorrow, you guys come into 76. Heart rate of time sequence has to understand the line communications. So you got a heart line rotation. Okay, set locations, right? Barometer checks, binary relines, graph line streams, 1, 2, 3, 4 set location settings. Now, the direction line, all levels and high line rotation interference is graph line interference. So it sets line grounds, line graphs, crisscross location set position of track lines. Comes out of positions, higher level settings, and 3 set location setting rotation. Now, the indication line interference is 3 set line conditions and 3 measuring calculations and 3 lines of location. Heart, mind, and soul. Down by equation, right? So getting graph lines, so voice line, graph lines, and high center line position location, track line communication is line communication of its oval line rotation to its ground lines into 2 line position. Now the line communication comes into a cloud line change. That changes the line calculation setting in directions of time sequence. Now in reduction, set lines of bars and wires and calculation streamline sets a matrix streamline calculation system to a data port of electrical board set location of travel position line high setting rotation surface down by equation. So it comes into all position location high setting. So your heart's turning in communication to the levels of a tree. Direction of time sequence comes into its vessel of communication to all calculation. It looks like an ice cream. So setting direct line signals, if you look really, really close, you can see the intelligence in set locations. Here's the eye set line conditions coming in position. There's the intelligence. Multi-pass. Okay? It's all set up. So, a lot of things going on. Highly recommended. Okay, yeah. Okay, so let's see. Can my flywheel have crystals on it? Or am I seeing something else? Yeah, whatever you're seeing, you just have to understand how to put it all together. Your heart is trying to understand its patterns, trying to understand its recognition, it's trying to understand its timelines, trying to understand its flywheel, it's trying to understand its position, it's trying to understand its intelligence, all calculation, line calculation, setting position location of its shuttle into its capsule, its allocations. See the intelligence? All right. So that's how everything is set up, location, heart settings, into 75 beacon lights. All right. New sign codes, sharing, DNA upgrades, discernment, truth, and heart, chakras and heart space. Yeah, it's amazing, Chris. Because Chris is understanding, and thing is everybody else understanding what's going on? Really understand the recognition, location, and high setting, guys, to really understand the position. All right, setting calculation of 0 lines. Now we come into graph line streams. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. We always have 7 line calculations because it's connected to our body frame. Anything above is the atmosphere. So the atmosphere line inference location of 7, 7 equal location of 5, 5 lines location of 12. Now 12 lines, 7 locations. Now this is where it comes in X line, into Y line, into O lines into P. Position line calculations into 3 line weathers, in position location percentage over 0 locations of 1. Now, integrant location line condition of wave set line calculation setting, alpha line rotations, delta communications, omega line rotations into ground lines of operation at 3 set location settings, rotation surface. That equation. Right? All right. So what it is just the transformation line calculations to its capsule is recognized in its time sequence. So you've got 3 panels of operation. All right. So in that calculation system, we use the electrical line calculation system, downshift line set location of 3 settings into your pyramid set location. All right. Now, understanding laser line communication in 3 set location. Right. High center calculations of video graph line streams. That's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 set locations. All right. Now, in that line communications, we open up its position location of its dimensional setting. This opens up the door set location. Now, in that line communication system, the 3 panels comes into 1. Center calculation is center line. Now, center line opens up another sequence pattern. Now, this opens up line communications in operation, okay? Now, in line communications, you guys are coming into 38 infinity position. Now, the recognition time sequence comes into 12 lines of higher levels of securities of perimeters. Travel calculation is extremely important, but we set line communications in line calculations into a double helix and rotation surface. Channels its operation to open sequence and set location in the 2 settings. Okay, this opens a panel line in the solar line rotation surface and set location. All right. Now, setting grounds and set lines in high position locations comes into your pyramid operation streamlines and 4 set line calculations in direct signal and set location. Now, in that direct line signal location, you come into a magnetic highway information channel. Now, this comes into plasma line calculation system. The plasma line channel and the rotation surface location, the plasmesian line covers all level settings. This covers it line communication line interference into a Stargate stream. Now, the Stargate stream comes into 12 DNA. This rotates its surface location, high setting, indirect signal, and set location. Done by equation. All right, see the intelligence? So we all have to understand how to use the grounds, the powers, the atmosphere, location, or hearts now. Because it's in line calculation, your 12 beacon light settings in direction of time sequence, which comes into your rainbow graph line calculation system. This allocates position, location, and timelines of time sequence. This puts everything in timelines all at once in 1 set location into 1 signal, 1 operation in calculation of 3 set line conditions: heart, mind, and soul. Okay. Setting direct signals is really understanding how to set things up. Okay. Recognition of time sequence is really understand how to set the 0 lines, the grounds, the operation surface to the power generation streamlines in direct signals, because you guys are reaching higher levels in system to come into all formation locations to your sun adaptation through pi. Okay. Getting into routers and set location line setting, there's the sun and there's the moon. Okay. Setting calculations, central position locations, right? Coming into all calculations of its projection. That's all it is. Setting communication line interference. This is you and set location. All right. Boy, it's a good thing I know how to draw. Right? That's you, center position. All right, so direction line calculation system, high track line calculation interference, indirect signal. Okay, so really understand how this works in position line calculation system. You got the back line of the template line rotations, the lobes. You got the front lobes and back lobes. Setting communication line interference is position of the sun and position locations of the moon, setting to its kaleidoscope location. All right. Now, the direction of time sequence changes its lines of track lines in triangulation to three-set position. This merges in set line calculation. Now, getting into that position locations, once the projector is set up, it travels its line calculations at alpha, delta, theta, beta, and omega in set location at 12 DNA line calculation settings. The direction of time sequence opens all calculations. So as it comes into the zero operation, as it comes into power generation line settings, it comes into its own flux capacitor, its own channel, its own scales, and set location of its own crop circle. It's set communication, travels line calculation setting. Direction of time sequence comes into a flux capacitor line calculation setting and a new line communication. Take the team line, center communication, center rotation surface, and set locations. So that's set up line calculation, line interference, direction locations. Now the line communications comes into 24 line conditions of 3 0 line rotations, 3 lines equal lines of 4. You always have to have 7 in direct line setting. So that's 24,000 line signatures. Okay, in heart position of palpitation stream. That line calculation system colorates the patterns, and the rest line calculation system puts you in a future adaptation line interference, heart direction of time sequence, locations, all calculation line conditions to your avatar. Setting signal locations at 2 panels operation. 1 setting in position of 2 and 3 set locations into 1 interference in the laser direction up north in set locations. The direction of time sequence, 2 lines and line communications in the line calculation system is 2 line conditions of pi in square root in set locations. Channel line interference or formation location forms its line calculation system in 1 sector, center calculations in 1 vector, vector over pi, set calculations to 12 Stargate line calculation settings in time sequence in position location track line setting, rotation surface, done by equation. All right, so you got 24,000 line settings. Now this position location when it comes into its antenna. Line calculation, line interference. We're going to put up line position locations into 48,000 Windows set line calculation streams in flux capacitor communication system rotation surface. This trains the line calculation system, training system line calculation setting. So it's like taking the training wheels off a bicycle. Okay. So that's line calculations in line calculation in high setting and triangulation line interference. We set a line position location of box position is triangle line communication system, rotates its surface back in the line calculation system, male line calculation to female line rotation surface, allocate line calculation system, heart line rotation surface, and set locations, high lines in position location, ventricle valve line rotation surface, and set location settings. Done by equation. Ooh-ah. All set up. All right. Okay, let's see here. Coming in, set location settings, rainbow, reverberation, all creation, purified streams. Okay, so it's really understand how to set these things up inside location inside your setting. What are we at? 24. We were at 24, 4 thumbs up, and 24 setting. Okay, that's not a coincidence. It's all set up. When I was drawing the sequence pattern, it was at 24 and 4 line setting, northwest, south, and east. Okay, so summer, spring, winter, and fall is now in correlating line calculation system is 75 beacon lights and heart direction of time, setting location of theta. That's setting communication your 12 line setting to your solar system locations. Of 40 connection line settings, equal lines of 8 infinity cycles, 48,000 windows and set location settings. Graph line streams in line connections to 1 barometer in 1 sector through pi calculation setting in 2 quadrant set locations. Okay, so it's all set up. Explains a lot. So Egypt feels it, yeah, in the sense that well, see, that's it. Knowing exactly how to set communication because the heart line setting has its direct location of its pyramid, right? The center communication is this line setting, guys, but it's in a 4 calculation, right? 2 panels line setting and rotation surface, all right? That's 6/6 set locations. Generation lights of 0 line operation surface is its flux capacitor set locations, right? Now, you have to understand how to use the north, east, west, and south. Every pyramid is set up location inside. Now, the direction timelines and highline interference has a computer adaptation surface location position. Scales its line calculation to its stargates and opens all portal communication to its plasmacene line setting. Now, the rotation surface location settings opens it position location high center interference. The direction time sequence comes into its all calculation of its pyramid setting. Okay, pyramid set line calculation sets laser direct locations to all pyramid set line calculations and all line calculations to anything through that position location. Zigzags and line calculation, laser direct location setting, rotation surface. Done by equation. All right. So you have to really understand how the heart is connected to all pyramid set line connection system, all timeline sequence, all timeline interference. Computer adaptation of zero line rotations into obstacles into observation location of stargate center location. Now, in that rotation spin cycle, it sets line communication in this line setting, rotation surface. Crosses signals in set location, position location, high setting. The rotation set line calculation system comes into this position location of track lines into its pyramid set. Now, a pyramid set is line calculation. It modifies its lines at ground lines, rotation surface. But the open signal is its ground information lines of zero operation to its surface. Directional time sequence opens up another panel operation of its dimensional line calculation. Center calculation setting. So the pyramid sets line communication in center operation into 4 waving cycles in set location setting and direct signals. Setting direct signal locations palpitates its streamline into all calculations. There's the intelligence done by equation. You look really, really close, you can see the line setting. 1 position and 2 position locations. There's the intelligence. It's all set up. All right, so recognition of time sequence. Getting line calculation streamlines is understanding how to use a UFO platform. You got 1 position locations, 0 operation, right? Calculation line interference. Center calculations in position locations into your pyramid set location setting. High calculation lines. Here's another pyramid set. Here's another pyramid set. Here's another pyramid set. There's a triangulation of 3 set location setting rotation. Now, in that calculation line interference, it crisscrosses this line calculation stream. Setting calculation of another 0 operation into 2 panels of operation locations. Okay, done by equation. We have to really understand how to set up your heart line setting into laser direct locations. 12 measures, 12 calculations, and 12 million sets, 12 million future line calculations of a coloration path that opens its signal and rotation surface. Okay, now that puts 1 angle, line conditions in high setting, 6 in position, and position of 12 in set locations. So equal line calculation, equal line interference, and position location, analyzes calculation, digital line, position location, track lines, 0 operation, 1 line, 6 line calculations, and 12 in division location of channel. Now the rotation surface sets line communication. This is where it comes all calculations to another UFO line position. Direction of time sequence, scans lines at ground lines and operation to surface location setting. Operates its center location of 0 lines in set location, high center location, into its flux capacitor in set line communication, in line calculation, interference, and position. Done by equation. All right. So really understand the track lines and the communication when it comes into fortitude lights, fortitude streams, fortitude locations. So putting line communication, heart direction, time sequence has 36 fields now. It has to have that calculation to protect line calculation setting. It's setting up beacon lights in all calculations every second. Now that's a 0, 9 in line rotation. Now the 0 comes all calculations. Okay, so you got a 0 line, line is a 9. Okay, it's 9 line location of X, X line position of Y and Z. Now line communications, setting communications. So that's 1 cell line calculation system of 1 billion set lines of communication. It's a location high setting. Or some time sequence, 0 operation into 20 calculation line interference, all billions in line rotation interference, in 1 second of 1 channel operation line calculation system. So that's 1 measure, 1 scale, and 1 division in set locations, travel communication, and 3 set line set location. That way equation. Operation signal locations. So all your hearts are now calculator modified. All calculator modified tells that line conditioning system. 1 billion channels of operation stream and 60,000 line signatures in position locations, longitude, latitude, imposition of square feet, square mile, square calculus, calculations of pi, direction of time stream, XYZ, XYZ, and calculation of zeta and gamma line calculation setting, and alpha, delta, theta, beta, omega is all set calculations to heart direction of time sequence and position locations of pi set location. Done by equation. All right, it's all done. So try to figure out everything that's going on right now. Okay, thumbs up on 2 counts. So it's important you understand how this is all set up. Okay, how to really understand how to communicate with things inside location setting. It recognizes all calculation interference, right? You got trillions of cells in your body now. That's recognized communication. So the recognized communication is understanding the cell lines. Now the protons, okay, so the pro line settings in cell locations is 1. 1 line connection of 1. 1 line connection of scale into triangle, triangle location of box. Box position locations into your pyramid set location of 4 set location settings. Okay, done by equation. So everything I've set up the formula is direction of time sequence. This puts position location of atom and position location of 6 and position location another 6 and calculation of the sun and communication of the moon setting into position location of projection. Okay. So you're trying to figure what's going on here. So yeah, laughter is the best medicine, right? That's what this is all about, right? So it's true to understand how to get in position location and perception locations, line calculation system. Now you come into the heart line. Heart recognizes calculation, equal line calculation system, XYZ, chromosome line calculation system. Now the chromosome line interference sets line calculations in position. So this will come in the carriers. Calculations all levels of communication, line calculations in receivers, receiver locations, line conditions all levels. It sets up a relay program. Now relay program comes into CPU. CPU line position locations comes into nano. Nano sets line calculation streamlines is location I center. Types line calculation streamlines is locations. Setting direct line centers of 6, line position location of 6. In position of 2 panels, operation surface to the sun communication. Back and track line calculation setting. Sun communication setting. Yeah, travel too fast here. Direction of time sequence location setting. In cell locations. Recognize high center interference in track location setting. High position of track lines. Okay, in cell locations. Change the color. Come into high setting. Center communication. Direction of time sequence in this position to the moon sight line calculation system and direct signal. So all we're doing is we're high-rising your calculation of project lines of the sun in communication to moon sight location setting. Direction of time sequence is really to understand how to use the modification surface. Now you got a computer adaptation line interference of a Stargate. Sets lines of communication, right? Now this templates its line communication as pyramid, in position as pi, in position location as pi, in positions of pi, 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 and pi position locations. Direction of time sequence, line calculation system, 2 panel walls and set line calculation streams. Now, the direction of time sequence opens up another Fibonacci swirl and set location system, puts you in direct signals. Now, the signal line communications line interference crosses stream line connections of 6. The rotation surface line calculation system crosses over in the opposite direction locations. This channels its line setting into strip position location into center lines and high lines of north line communication. Now, a line communication line interference sets a line of a Fibonacci swirl in the opposite direct locations and center operation of all timeline sequence of pi recognition. Done by equation, right? So we got line communication of panels in set location setting, travel communication of graph lines and road graph location. So when you open up a signal in set line connection in high setting, the heart understands its position location of track lines of its beacon light. So it knows exactly where to go in position location high setting interference. Setting calculation system. Now let's go into green set. Change line communication system into green line of flux capacitor calculation. All right. Now, cross the signal in set locations. Right. Center communication opens up all levels, double helix and line calculation. I'm just showing you exactly how to open a portal again. Center calculation system is 1 line into 2 lines into 3 lines into 4 line communication. Direction of time sequence. Now, getting calculation system sets a line of a split in set location setting that opens up its portal and set line calculation setting to its Stargate rotation surface. Now, in that direct line setting, it travels its line communication, another circle line rotation into higher levels of 45-degree angle and set location. Travel communication system sets perimeters and parameters to another set location of travel and set locations. Down by equation. So there's a lot of things that you have to understand how the heart travels the direction location of time, guys. It centers its op. A center op to psych op, the set locations to is psychological. It sets its stands. A stand meter is a direct line signal of a scale. Scale line calculation system. This is how you balance out the countermeasures in your set locations. This opens all channel line calculation interference. All right. Setting direct signal locations. All right. So let's stay with the green and circle locations. All right. Clock line setting in 1, 2, 3, 4 in set locations. Right. So that's 12 lines set locations. Now that's position of 0, 1. We're changing the clock lines. Setting calculation system. So that puts in a 48 window center calculation setting. In calculation at 24 line setting, 13 line calculation system. That's 1 p.m. We got that calculation clock line. Setting calculation of 48. Now 48 line connections of a window. You look at line connections of 3 zeros. That's 48,000 line calculation. Into 72 track lines and 7 line connections of 3, 0 line connection system. 3 over 4, 4 over line calculation of 7, 7 equal location of 5, 5 is location of 12, 12 and 8 line interference, line is location of 144, line calculation of 244, line communications, waiting on signal, and calculation of triangulation of 3 set line calculation system of 244 and set location setting and direct sighting location. Done by equation. All right. So clock line setting, line interference is now set at location heart settings. Setting direct line signals is really understand how to set signals in position location on clock lines. The direction of time sequence has to really understand how to use all levels of perimeters. Now the line communication center lines of 2, 2 equals lines of 2, 2 equals lines of 2. All right, so it's 2 lines in position of 4, 4 lines equal line position location of 2, 2 line position location of 6 in set locations. All right, center calculation setting, there's your pyramid set location. Okay, that's how you set a pyramid in position of numbers. All through measure, 2 scales, 3 scales, 4, and 5 set location settings. Direction of time sequence, guys. You have to really understand how to use the number sequence locations of patterns. So 2 line setting, flux pass position, flux pass position, flux pass position of 3 set location. Right? Grounds lines a 0 operation surface in set location setting. High calculation system, flux capacitor in set locations. Right? Travel position location, let's change the coloration line setting. Let's change it into a different color line setting. Let's change it into red. Okay, so red set locations. Operation signal, travel communication. So you travel through it, it goes in this line calculation. Goes into this line calculation, this line calculation. Then it goes into this line calculation. Okay? And then it goes into travel line position. Right? So when you travel through it, it travels through it. And it comes back in set line and communication and a rotation surface at set location. Travel calculation line interference comes into a force line, back line, resistant position on channel. Graph line streams, 0 line, 0 line, 0 line, 3 set location settings, top locations. Now we got a 0 line, and a 1 line setting in set locations. So that's in perimeter line interference location, high set line position, travel line communication system is 72 measures, set calculation of 144. 144, equal line condition of 244, 244, waiting on signal, 3 line position of 24, 4 line setting in position locations, triangulation of 3 lines in 4 set location settings, 3, 4 set location. Done by equation. Setting graph line settings. Now the heart has to really understand all travel. Now, getting into that position locations, you have to really understand how to set up signals. Setting signal locations and levels. Energetic graph lines, rotations, voice line, and rotation surface in set locations. All right. So we got line calculation of 0 to 5. So that's 5 lines. Okay, so we got line communications. So we got 528 megahertz, okay, megahertz line interference into 640. 640 line position locations into 220. 220 line interference and 0 gravity in set location setting position of the track line. Now, setting communication line interference, 528 megahertz line interference sets line communications into 3 set line connection system, 3 track line communications, and 3 open signals and triangulation line interference, sets direct signals in set locations. Heart travels position locations, all right? Setting direct signals in set location. Okay, so heart monitor, line rotations, heart remote, 3 lines and relays and locations, 12 line signals, comes back and calculations center lines, flux paths, position locations, activate string single line calculations in line setting. Northeast, longitude, latitude, line calculation system. This is in the 16 light years, line communication setting in position locations. 4 generation line setting, line interference of 24, 24, 24, 24. Bracket communication, line calculation setting in direction of time sequence. 4 weather patterns in communication line center, heat signature pattern, communication system. 0 operation line calculation at 12 DNA and track location setting position, track line division. Done. All right. So actually, it does remind me of Narnia. Love you guys. Remind me of Narnia. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of things that you're going through surface. You have to really understand how this works with all locations, your heart settings. But I'm just setting up all calculations to your graphical line connections, computer operation to start setting interference. 75 beacon lights, rotation surface location, calculation line interference, track line communication settings now set up. So again, we start with the 0 line rotation. Okay. Now we come into the line calculation of triangulation line set. Okay, direction of time sequence and set location. Travel calculations. 6 line interference. That's 6 position, another 6 line, and another 6 line, and set location to another 4, and position location of 3, line conditions of levels. High center line position locations of 5, 5 line center line position of all, calculation of 7, 7 line conditions of 12, DNA, line center line position location X, Y, Z, line calculation, ozone, line interference, percentage over pi, calculation setting, line calculation system, indirect signals to new calculation line interference, heart monitor, line calculation streamline, 0 operation surface, in a tetrahedron line calculation streamline, and direct signal solar panel calculation setting. Down by equation. Okay, so we got the altitude and longitude line streamline calculation system, atmosphere, hemisphere, stratosphere, hydrospheres, biospheres, and calculations to its branium. It's all set up, location heart. So setting these things up is extremely important to the heart setting because it has communication at levels of road graph line streams. It's its own geometric pattern. It's a reference to time sequence. It's all timelines all at once, guys. So you have to get everything in sequence location in its direct line setting so it knows exactly what it's doing through its beacon lights when it gets into coordinate location settings of longitude and latitude. The direction of time speeders has to really understand the calculation system. Now it's 150 feet away from each planet calculation line interference and direct location system and direct line calculation line interference that you track levels in position location mechanism high setting. This is the mystical bell calculation line interference that sets all operation signals in location setting that operates its system location on all tracks. Setting communication of 1 in signal in position locations and another 1 in signal in another calculation setting. 2 set line calculations into triangulation, 3 set in set location. Now, getting that direct signal line in position location panels its line string 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 lines in center communication into its setting. Okay, done by equation. Rest of time sequence. So now your heart understands north, south, and east, setting consoles and communication in set line conditions. Y line settings, flux faster, and position of track lines. Rest of time sequence location of the pi. Done by equation, right? So there's so much to do with the heart. Really understand how to set these things up is really understand how to recognize all communication north, south, and east, and your weathers, any communication what comes into your seasons. Summer, spring, winter, and fall, right? So in position location, last but not least, line communication line interference, heart line rotation interference, H2O, set line position locations, all set line conditions. That's a square root, line condition of 2, 2 position of 1, 1 line setting, 5 line calculation of 7, 8 lines of 12, 12 DNA line rotation interference, setting altitude, latitude, line into position location of coordinates, coordinate line communication, line connection line system, hemi-sync line calculation line interference. There's some timelines, automatic view, remote view, line rotation interference, direct signals and set location travel, 6 line calculation system, line condition of 4, line position of 5, direction of time sequence. That's 5 generation line interference. That's 10 over line position of 12, 12 calculation line interference, 8 line setting, line communication 8, rotation surface and set location setting. Done by equation, right? So all coordinates location of 0 to 12, the set line calculation system, and the line calculation system is now in inventory, okay, through mainframe, okay? It's all set up to your heart set locations. Would you think it was going to be easy to do this in set location setting? It's all levels of high setting, guys. All right. So in that position locations, you come into percentage. Now the percentage line calculation system, this thousands is communications, right? DOSL, line calculation setting, direction of timelines. All right, this is a taper stream line calculation of valve into VAS into volume. Setting communication line interference and trial communication setting, rotation service. Setting communication line interference into time step in a 4-box location in the opposite direct location setting and 3-set location setting interference and track locations. So that's 3 lines equal to pi position location lines of 6, process signal, setting position location of travel. Pi calculation comes back and triangle line setting line interference and set location 12 set locations. Done by equation. All right. Setting box, repeaters, routers, set lines of Wi-Fi, modems, satellites, antennas, line division locations, rotation surface, line connection high setting, direction of time sequence. You have to really understand how to set up panels calculation line interference. So we got a diamond core line interference, north line, east line, west line, and south line communication. Indicate line interference, flex faster, line connection arrow, and position location of south line communication. Now, the direction of time sequence has to really understand the ground lines of 3 set locations. Operation surface and set locations. Okay. Operation surface and center position. And operation surface and magnetic highway information. 2 line rotation surface. Now, line center line connections, if it's dimensional, opens up its signal. Now, line communication line interference. Travel communication system, 1 in line setting, 7 in position, equal lines of 5 line center. I'm always working with DNA, center calculation, setting interference, and set locations, setting position location and track lines, and set location high setting. Now, direct line signal comes into this position location, high center interference, and track locations. All right, all done through equation. All right. So, 0 lines, ground lines, the operation surface is now in a triangulation line interference. Now we take the cells modification, 3 set line connections, 3 triangle locations, all right? All right, so center calculation system. Now line interference, 1 billion line rotation in line connection system. Line calculation of 1 billion line track line communication and 1 billion line connections of H2O line rotation interference and cell calculation system. Now, this sets line connections of X, Y, Z, and line calculation setting, and locations, and pi, and set location division. Done. All right. So all solid modifications and triangulations all set up. All right. Done through equation. All right. That's it. It's all done. So you just have to really understand what's going on here, guys. It's all done through connections of clocking, all connected through motivation. It's all connected to the high setting line interference, your beacon lights, your travel mechanism, high settings, your 12 DNA line interference, all timeline sequence locations, you allocate line communications, the atmosphere change line settings, heart records of time sequences, electrical valve communications, your neural line settings, your PSYOPs, high calculation line interference, your psychological, spiritual calculations, all psychosis locations now set up the coloration path or heart direction of time sequence location of pi. High calculation line interference location of flux capacitors now the set location position of track line communication setting. Hoo-ah. Yeah, see? It's all set up. It's all done. So, how does everybody feel? Right? It's all done. 58 line setting into 38 position. 38 position. Right on calculations. That's where you guys are. 30 line settings and set locations on 8 infinity cycle line communications. So in that communication, you'll be in 76, okay, in heart line connections into throat set locations. So we've set the voice box line set location heart. This will recognize its time sequence location of patterns of 0 9 operation and know exactly how fast you're going through the mind of collaboration to center calculation. All right? All right. Talk to you guys later. Adios.